So this is really good because it's all pointing towards the difference between somebody that's wise and somebody that's a fool. It's foolish to just wear cologne without showering. It's foolish to just go to parties and never ponder. Have you had your daily drip? Welcome back to the Daily Drip Podcast, where we create kingdom content that builds community. I'm your host, Aaron Levy, and we're going to squeeze them scripts for that daily drip. Last week, I had my son Colin on. Our drip was appetite. And this week, our drip is better, which is a continuation because since we're talking about appetite, there'll be a couple of things that we're comparing on what is better to have in your appetite. What is drip? Is devotional reading for insight in practice. We take thirst-quenched drips of the scriptures. Like today, we're going to take Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 1 all the way to verse 8, and we reduce it to one word, the one word today being better. We're going to squeeze it out and we're going to practice it for the week. So this week, we're going to be comparing what is better for us based upon the way that we want to go. So, hey, if this podcast has been a blessing to you, why don't you share it with somebody? Why don't you subscribe? Why don't you lock in with us on Instagram and TikTok? Be a part of the conversation. Well, let's get into the drip. Ecclesiastes 7, starting at verse 1, better. Let's go. A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting. For this is the end of all mankind, and the living will lay it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by sadness of face the heart is made glad. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. We're going to read verses 5 through 8 later, but let's kind of squeeze out a little bit from verses 1 through 4, because the things that they're comparing that are better on the surface, when you hear them, they don't really seem better. Like the first one, it says here, a good name is better than precious ointment. But if you think about this in a principle statement, if you think about precious ointment is something that you put on yourself and then it goes away. Then you got to put it on again and then it goes away. So it's something that we do externally. So when people come to us on the surface, they can say things good about us. But a good name goes beyond us. You know, and that's why it says the day of death better than the day of birth, because you'll know somebody has a good name at their funeral. Eulogy means to speak well of. And I've never heard a eulogy when they talked about somebody's cologne or perfume, because that's surface level stuff. It talks about character, their family, their legacy, how they were described when they were in a room, when they were at a party, et cetera, et cetera. So it's more the character attributes, a good name. So that's why it's saying a good name is better than precious ointment. Nothing wrong with wearing cologne. But whenever we put on cologne, we get to decide it. We don't make it, right? But it makes us smell better on the surface, but there may be things on the inside. Oh, I just got reminded of something. My homie that I would live with decades ago, he would go to work and then he would want to go to the club right after. Wouldn't shower, but then would just put on some precious ointment. And he's at the club funky, but on the outside, you really couldn't tell because he had that precious ointment. And that's a lot like our lives sometimes, where we're smelling like what we just came out of still. Haven't washed, haven't renewed, but then since we're so quick to go to what's next, I'll just put some precious ointment. I'll just put some stuff on the outside. It's like, nah. A lot of times we got to wash some things on the inside because a good name is better than precious ointment. But look what it says here. It's better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of feasting. So when I think about this as a principle, it's like, why would I go to a house where everybody's grieving and crying? It's weird. Like, well, I want to go to a party where there's feasting, a nice charcuterie board, and nice. But then if you think about it, if I go to a party or if I go to a house where everything's already laid out and everybody's feasting, I don't have to think. I don't have to ponder. So that's what this is saying. It is better for you to be in a situation that makes you ponder, because in a party, you don't have to ponder. That's what it's saying. So when we go to a house of mourning, now I got to have a sober mind on attempting to bring comfort to those that are grieving, but also a sober mind thinking about my life. Because have you ever been to a funeral and you go to the repast after? You're not just coming in there without no filter on what's appropriate, unless you're foolish. And a wise person will go into a house of mourning and provide comfort for his loved ones. But at the party, we have a lot of other things that are already bringing comfort, so we don't have to think through how we can be good friends to bring comfort. And that's why it's saying it's better to go to a house of mourning than to a house of feasting. So this is really good because it's all pointing towards the difference between somebody that's wise and somebody that's a fool. It's foolish to just wear cologne without showering. It's foolish to just go to parties and never ponder. So now we're starting to get an understanding of what he's saying here. That's why in verse 3, sorrow is better than laughter. Dang. What? Before by sadness of face, external, the heart is made glad. That made me think of one of my favorite movies, Inside Out, when sadness and joy came together. And the fulfillment of joy is when I can be authentic about my real emotions, but know that my joy still comes from God because my joy is independent of circumstance. So our joy is tested when we're sad. So when we have a sadness of face, it's going to take some wisdom to remind us where our joy and where our gladness comes from. So that's what we're talking about here. Now let's continue in verse 5. All the way to verse 8 with the remaining time that we have, because we're still talking about what's better. Verse 5 through 8. It is better for a man to hear the rebuke of the wise than to hear songs of fools. For as the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of fools. This also is vanity. Surely oppression drives the wise into madness, and a bribe corrupts the heart. Better is the end of a thing than its beginning, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. We can spend all day here, but let's just contrast a couple of them. It says here the rebuke of the wise. A rebuke is a correction. So it's better for a man to be corrected with wisdom than to hear songs of a fool. Now, when I get in a car, I don't just go to the correction stations. I don't go to Apple Music and just look for correction. I be looking to have a good time, especially when I'm in traffic. But what do we need when we're in traffic in life? We need advice on the best routes. So that's why it's saying is, hey, maybe we're going the wrong way. And while it's taking longer, it may be more comforting to listen to a song, but it may be better to get wisdom on a different route to get to where we're getting. That's the principle. So a rebuke from a wise person is somebody saying, hey, you made a right turn. You should have made a left turn. And this is what a left turn looks like. And it's better to get that than just to hear songs from a fool. He describes it as crackling of thorns under a pot. And the crackling of thorns, that's the laughter, that's the party. And what it is, the crackling of the thorns are dying, they're burning, but it makes a sound. It gives a warmth, but once that warmth wears out, just like the precious ointment, you're going to need more and need more songs, more parties, more laughter. And that's why it's better for mourning. That's why it also says here, better is the end of a thing than its beginning, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Because when we're prideful, we are not patient because we don't think we have to be. And pride puts us in a situation where I want it now. This is what I want, and I'm entitled to it, and it should be here now. But it's wise to be patient, because if we don't have what we need right now, it gives us an opportunity to trust God on the timing of us getting what we need. And there's been times in my life where I've declared something as a need. It was only a want. And sometimes God will not allow me to get what I want so he can show me that he's all that I need. And it takes patience to be able to see that. But if I'm prideful, I'm just going to go after what I want because I think I know best. And that's why after we talked about appetite last week, we're talking about all these contrasts of things that are better. The world has an appetite for laughter, for partying, the beginning of a thing. See, here's the thing. That's why I love verse 8. The beginning of a thing. It reminds me of when we launched a campus. I'm a pastor, and we launched one of our campuses. And in the beginning, everybody's excited. Everybody's telling me what the church is going to look like, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. Because it's the beginning. There's no hard work yet. But at the end of that launch phase, the team at the beginning was not the team at the end, because it takes patience, not pride. And pride talks a lot. Patience walks a lot. So that's the drip today. The way that we'll practice it this week, why don't you take one of the contrasts, whether it's good name or precious ointment, whether it's mourning or feasting, whether it's sorrow or laughter, and which one have you considered that, oh, I thought that one was better. That's the one I've been striving after. But the way we'll practice it this week, it's better if it helps you to grow. It's better if it helps you to make more wise choices. Think of a situation that may be frustrating you. Maybe it's an opportunity to develop patience. So that's the drip today. We're going to focus on, God, what would you say is better for me? I can easily think of what's best for me. But in my prayer this week, in our prayer this week, let's think, God, what do you say is better for me? Well, hey, that's the drip. Thank you for tuning in every week. I want to remind you, if you're new to our community, every Monday, 6 a.m., a new episode drops. So like, for example, next week, we're going to just go to verse 9, and we're just going to continue in the drip. And that drip next week will be wisdom. So, hey, lock in, join the community, and let's expand this community. And we always close the episode by saying, stay dripping, my friends.